Werner Heisenberg, the father of quantum mechanics, once said if he met God, he'd ask two questions: why relativity and why turbulence? And he expected only the second to have an answer. Think about that. The man who discovered that reality itself is fundamentally uncertain, believed turbulence was harder to explain than the fabric of space-time. He wasn't joking. Right now in 2024, with quantum computers and AI that can fold proteins, we still cannot predict how cream swirls in your morning coffee. Not approximately. Even close. This isn't just embarrassing, it's a trillion-dollar blind spot that crashes planes, cripples engineering projects, and exposes a terrifying crack in physics' foundation. So what makes turbulence so impossibly difficult? Turbulence is everywhere. It's in the air that flows over aircraft wings, the blood pumping through your arteries, the smoke rising from a candle, the water rushing through pipes beneath cities. It's the chaotic, swirling, unpredictable motion of fluids. You see it, you feel it. But here's what's strange. We can't mathematically prove it even exists under certain conditions. Turbulence operates at every scale simultaneously. A river looks smooth on the surface, but zoom in, and you'll find eddies within eddies within eddies, cascading down to molecular scales. This cascade of chaos follows patterns, yet defies prediction. It's ordered disorder. Leonardo da Vinci spent years sketching these swirls, calling them the most complex phenomenon in nature. 5 centuries later, nothing has changed. In 1509, Leonardo da Vinci filled notebook after notebook with obsessive drawings of water turbulence. He called it turbolenza, giving the phenomenon its name. His sketches are hauntingly beautiful spirals and vortices, capturing something profound he couldn't explain with mathematics. He wrote that understanding water's chaos was essential to understanding nature itself, yet he died without answers. Fast forward to 1822. Claude-Louis Navier writes equations describing fluid motion. 20 years later, George Stokes refines them. The Navier-Stokes equations are born, the mathematical description of how fluids flow. They work perfectly for smooth laminar flow, but introduce turbulence, and these equations become a monster. They're nonlinear, meaning solutions feed back into themselves, creating an infinite loop of complexity. Solving them exactly? Mathematically impossible in most cases. The Navier-Stokes equations look deceptively simple, just a few terms describing momentum, pressure, and viscosity. But hidden inside is a computational nightmare. To solve them for turbulent flow, you'd need to calculate the behavior of every eddy at every scale simultaneously. That means tracking interactions between structures ranging from meters to millimeters. That's a billion times difference in scale. Your computer would need more memory than atoms in the universe. Literally. Physicists tried simplifying with approximations, statistical methods, anything to make progress. Sometimes these work well enough for engineering. But mathematically proving whether smooth solutions exist for all conditions or whether they break down into infinities, nobody knows. This isn't about better computers. This is about whether the math itself has answers. In 2000, the Clay Mathematics Institute identified 7 mathematical problems so important and so difficult, they offered $1 million for each solution. These are called the Millennium Prize problems. Only one has been solved in 24 years. The Navier-Stokes existence and smoothness problem is among them. The question, given any starting condition, will the equations always produce smooth, predictable solutions? Or can they spontaneously explode into infinity? If they can explode, turbulence might be fundamentally unpredictable, not because we're not smart enough, but because the universe itself doesn't have an answer. Some physicists suspect turbulence exposes a genuine boundary of mathematical reality, where determinism ends and pure chaos begins. If true, we're not just ignorant, we're faced with something unknowable. Modern engineers don't solve turbulence. They simulate approximations. Computational fluid dynamics software runs simplified versions of the Navier-Stokes equations, cutting corners with statistical models like Reynolds averaged Navier-Stokes or large eddy simulation. These work impressively well for designing aircraft, predicting weather, modeling combustion engines. But they're educated guesses, not truth. NASA's most powerful supercomputers can simulate airflow around a wing, yet they can't predict exactly when turbulence will suddenly intensify. Airlines still route planes around weather based on pilot reports and statistical risk, not precise calculations. This costs the industry $3 billion annually in fuel and delays. Engineers have built an entire technological civilization on approximations of something we don't actually understand. It works until it doesn't. Turbulence is deeply connected to chaos theory, the idea that tiny changes in initial conditions create wildly different outcomes. Edward Lorenz discovered this accidentally in 1961 while modeling weather on a primitive computer. He rounded one number by 1,000th, and the entire forecast changed. The butterfly effect was born. Turbulence is chaos theory on steroids. In chaotic systems, you can theoretically predict outcomes if you know initial conditions perfectly. But turbulence operates at infinite scales. You'd need infinite precision. Measure the starting conditions with any error, even a single atom's position, and your prediction becomes worthless in seconds. This isn't a technological limitation. It's a fundamental feature of reality. Heisenberg's uncertainty principle guarantees you cannot measure precisely enough. Quantum mechanics itself prohibits the data needed to predict turbulence. And now you know why Heisenberg feared turbulence more than relativity. Relativity challenged our intuitions but gave us equations that work. Turbulence challenges the very idea that equations must have solutions. It suggests the universe contains pockets of fundamental unpredictability, where mathematics reaches its edge and dissolves into chaos. What does this mean? It means humility. The greatest minds across 5 centuries, Da Vinci, Navier, Stokes, Heisenberg, Feynman, all failed here. Not because they weren't brilliant, but because some aspects of reality may be permanently beyond perfect description. We've learned to live with turbulence through approximation and engineering cleverness. We've built jets and designed hearts and predicted storms, not by solving the problem, but by dancing around it. Sometimes the deepest truth is accepting that not everything can be known. And that's not embarrassing, that's profound.